Hi, I'm Jen from Tea Leaves and Tweed, and here I talk about all things tea. So if that sounds like something you'd enjoy, be sure to subscribe to follow more of what I do. This morning it is a chilly autumn morning, so I think it's time for some of my favorite autumn tea, and I'm doing it as a literary tea session. Today we're having tea with the Black Dragon. So a little while ago, my friend Kit introduced me to a book called Tea with the Black Dragon, and it is a kind of urban fantasy, cyberpunk, maybe a little science fiction book from the early 80s, and it focuses on a story of a mother trying to find her daughter. However, the person that I would consider to be the protagonist is this peripheral character who goes by the name Mayland Long and is the kind of titular Black Dragon of the title. And when the mother is first getting acquainted with Mayland Long, she visits him in his home and he offers her some tea. And the scene is written from her point of view, and she describes the tea as smelling like peaches but tasting slightly salty. And the combination of Mayland Long's rather mysterious backstory with the description of that tea and the fact that they specify that it is oolong tea, as is indicated also by the Black Dragon of the title, I immediately thought of yancha. So yancha, as I've mentioned before, is an oolong tea from the Wuyi Mountains, and it has this characteristic taste called rock taste. And rock taste is this mineral quality. And I think that in people who aren't connoisseurs, this minerality is often interpreted as saltiness. So I spent a lot of time looking for a yancha that was supposed to smell like peaches. Now, yancha is often called floral or spicy. It's named after flowers or spices, and I was largely unsuccessful for a long time. And then I remembered the fruit fragrance rogue from one of my favorite yancha distributors, Old Ways Tea, and as I was looking around on their website, I found this other special kind of rogue that they specifically said had a peach aroma on the nose to them. So I had to buy some of it, and now I think I will steep it today as a tea session inspired by Mayland Long. So let's brew. So here I have my rather standard yancha brewing setup. I have my Da Hong Pao clay pot that I got from Bitter Leaf Teas. And I also have my phone here, and that's because in recognition of the kind of cyberpunky aspects of the story, I think I'm going to use technology to brew this tea. I'm going to use a new tea app that I'm going to talk about a little bit more on Thursday that I've been beta testing. So we'll select our tea, and we are brewing the Hui Yuan Kang Rogue from Old Ways Tea. Please excuse my terrible Chinese. So I will choose that tea, and I will choose my clay pot. Here I have 4 grams of the tea, and I'm using filtered tap water, and I'm not going to rinse it because I very rarely rinse Wuyi oolongs. So I have water here that was boiling when I put it in my thermal flask, so I'm going to call that 95 degrees C. And because this is a yancha, I'm going to start with a 10-second steeping and add 5 seconds for each infusion. So the wonderful thing about this app is that it has a timer function that you don't have to turn off the timer when it goes off. But first, we are going to rinse our teapot and wake it up a little. It's a little chilly out here. So we'll pour our water slowly, warm up our pot, and I have 2 cups here because The tea in the story was shared. And we'll water our little plants. And here we have our 4 grams of yancha. And you can see one of the things that they talk about in the book is the fact that oolong means black dragon. And I love this yancha from Old Ways Tea because you can see these big twisted curly leaves that kind of give the tea its name. Supposedly it was called Black Dragon because the roast makes the tea leaves look very dark, and the larger leaves of an oolong pick lead to these really interesting twisted leaf shapes that are supposed to resemble a dragon in flight. So we can put this into our warmed teapot. And rescue any stragglers. And now we'll do our first steeping. So let's give it a taste. So I'm going to use this white cup because I can see this beautiful maple syrup amber color of the liquor. It does have a slight peachy aroma to it. That's really neat. But it also has that kind of rich yancha aroma that just always reminds me of cozy baked goods and maybe a little bit of brown sugar. I'm gonna smell the leaves. Let's see what I get off that. Oh, the roast is very apparent on the leaves. Oh, that's so smooth. It almost tastes fruitier than it smells, but it does have that very pronounced rock taste. It's almost like having a really nice flavored mineral water, because you don't think of mineral and peaches really going together. It's got that slippery mineral texture to it. I love it. And the book is really interesting. It's one of the first books of its time to feature an East Asian protagonist. So while the story focuses around Mayland Long helping this American woman, he really drives a lot of the action of the story and is ultimately, in my opinion, the hero of the story. It does have a sequel that I haven't read yet, so I'm curious to see how the story continues. Oh, interesting. So one of my favorite tea podcasts, Talking Tea with Ken Cohen, did an episode about teaware shape with Kevin Gascon, and it's interesting how these 2 cups, which I mostly chose because they're a little bit taller than they are wide, and I thought it might keep the tea from cooling off too quickly in the chilly weather. The 2 different shapes, where this one's kind of fluted and this one's straighter sided, actually does affect the flavor of the tea. This is also a slightly heavier material. This is one of my favorite little cups. Yeah, it's a little bit richer and darker tasting. in this cup. But you still get that kind of cooked peaches flavor to it. So one of my favorite things about the app is that I don't need to keep track of how long I've been steeping things. I can just tell it to add a certain amount of time to each infusion as I go through my Gong Fu session. So for our second steeping, we're doing 15 seconds. And you probably can't hear the sounds. I have them turned down rather low. But it does have a lovely little gong bell at the end of steeping. This infusion is darker. Oh. I get more of that perfumey, peachy aroma. Oh, I get a little bit of kind of a brightness to it. It's also hotter because I have chattered less before drinking this infusion. Oh. There is a reason that I chose yancha as my perfect autumn tea. It's just so cozy. This is a delightful tea. And I will almost certainly brew it at least one more time. According to Old Ways Tea, the one drawback of this tea is that it does not last for that many infusions. So it does tend to give off most of its power in those earlier infusions, which is one of the reasons I went pretty conservatively with my first steeping time. And I think this second steeping, it really has opened up a little bit more. This is also a tea that I might have to use the second half of the packet to experiment with saving the first infusion. So this has been Tea with Mayland Long, or Tea with the Black Dragon, a literary tea session inspired by a really interesting little urban fantasy book from the 80s. So I hope you enjoyed this literary tea session. As always, please leave a comment below if you have any requests, or if you just want to say hi, and I hope I see you again sometime. Bye.